What would you say is the most iconic moment in gaming? Big question to drop on you right at the start, I know, but this is a test, and yes, there is a correct answer. I'm going to give you 3 seconds to think about it. But if you are wrong, then you have to like and subscribe. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules, that's just how it is. Time's up. The correct answer, as we all know, was when Kiryu hired a chicken named Nugget to work as a property manager in his real estate firm. This particular scene occupies its own private wing in my mind palace. I think about it non-stop. I don't think I've ever been more emotionally enthralled by another scene in my entire life, if we're being honest. This is probably the most well-known aspect of the Yakuza series, which is that they have a very melodramatic storyline, but their side content is absolutely fucking insane. You got some pretty normal stuff, like just doing karaoke, but then on the other side of the spectrum, you've got shit like Ichiban fighting a giant Roomba that is threatening to suck up the entire town. It's very unusual for a game, or any piece of media really, to have this kind of wild tonal shift in it, but Yakuza is not afraid to shift that tone back and forth like a metronome. It's pretty much considered a selling point, which is wild when you think about it. I feel like people typically consider this kind of inconsistency to be a bad thing, but it's not in Yakuza. How is it that the devs are able to pull that off? How is it that the game is able to get you to take it completely seriously, but also treat it like it's a big joke at the same time? I think about this a lot. Normally games go out of their way to keep side content roughly in line with the critical path at the very least. A game like Witcher will have some side quests that are meant to be funny, sure, but they are more or less logical within that world. You don't see shit like this in Witcher.
確かこっちに来たと思ったんだけど、どこ行った？あそこだ！クララちゃん、戻ってきて！おいおい、まさかあいつ。クララが乗った！
But you do see it in Yakuza. Not to hit you with the video essay meme, but it is that whole ludo-narrative dissonance thing, which is a problem games like Uncharted suffer from. The games are meant to have this kind of wacky, upbeat adventure aspect to them. Nathan Drake is meant to be a cool and funny guy, but in gameplay, he is literally a mass murderer. He kills hundreds of people in cold blood and without a shred of remorse. It's just weird. The two sides of the game don't mesh well at all, and it makes the game feel illogical as a result. So I can't take that seriously. But yet, I have no trouble believing that Kiryu is able to throw hands with a giant underwater squid. What the fuck's going on? Well, of all things, I think we might be able to find at least part of the answer in Korean horror movies. I'm gonna be honest with you here. Horror in Korea is completely out of control. It's commonly cited that Japanese horror is better than Western horror, and that is true, but the Koreans are pretty much just dunking on the Japanese. Korean horror is on a whole other level. First off, these movies are extremely depressing. If you are of a sensitive disposition, you should not watch these horror movies, or you will be upset. But that's not what makes them unique. It's easy to make a bleak scenario. Sticking the landing is the hard part. No, what's interesting is that they have a lot of comedy in them, actually. I don't mean that as they are horror comedies, but that they are horror movies which contain comedy. Extremely horrifying moments will be immediately followed by slapstick comedy, and vice versa. This creates an extremely jarring and dissonant effect, which is normally bad, but it doesn't have to be, strictly speaking. If something is dissonant, what we're really saying at the end of the day is that it makes us uncomfortable it's this way. That's how, say, the uncanny valley works. Our brains are able to detect that something is wrong on a subconscious level, and that alarms us, even if we're not consciously aware of that fact. So it would logically follow that dissonance can be a good thing if used well in a horror setting, since the entire point of horror is to make us uncomfortable. But it's a very delicate line to walk. If the thing is too serious, the jokes will seem like needless fluff, but if it's too funny, then it's also no longer a horror. Korean writers have really been able to zero in on the exact right amount of both. It's basically the screenwriting equivalent to black magic. There is another benefit though, besides the discomfort aspect, which is that comedy is very good at getting us to lower our guard. In our mind we go, ah yes, this is funny, funny things are good, there is no danger here then because good thing is here. And then some kind of abomination pops out to traumatize us. A constant horror atmosphere is very tiring. If we're braced non-stop for something scary to happen, eventually it just wears you down and you become numb, meaning it ceases to be engaging media. And what better way to relieve tension than a joke, right? I think that Yakuza rides a pretty similar line to this. It's not a horror story, obviously, not even the zombie one is horror, but it is a thriller, which shares a fairly decent size of the genre Venn diagram. Your guard is definitely going to lower at least a little if you play through a side quest that has you dress up like this, which in turn means you are going to be extra fucking disturbed by the extremely brutal torture scene that happens towards the end of the game. There is another side to this though, which is that all of these dumb side quests help endear us to the characters. When it comes to characterization, it's often the little touches that really bring the whole thing together. A classic example is this scene from Yu Yu Hakusho.
Eloquently answered as always. Care for a drink?
We've had a good arrangement, Sakyo. May the tournament finish appropriately. If you don't mind, I will take a glass of orange juice over ice.
People love that scene, even though it's such a dumb little thing. Who cares if Big Scary Man doesn't drink alcohol and likes orange juice? Well, it's because it's these really insignificant things that make the character feel human. We all have these little ridiculous things that we do, and of course we all also have our own preferences. So when we see these little gay people who live inside our computers express themselves in that way, it makes us feel much closer to them, as if they have revealed some deep and intimate part of themselves to us, even if it isn't really all that meaningful in the grand scheme. The side content in Yakuza is like 99% orange juice. They are all extremely dumb and they all have zero impact on the greater narrative, but they do show us a lot of these little character moments. I would like Kiryu just fine if it was only the main story I had to go on, but I like Kiryu much more knowing that he is the kind of person who would take time out of his busy schedule, proving that he is not a murderer, to teach a group of turbo nerds how to pretend to be tough guys. There's a lot of things that you can do in Yakuza, but uniquely for an open world game, you can't go around randomly attacking people, because that's something that none of the protagonists would ever do. So why would it be an option at all? This, by extension, must mean that everything we can do in-game is something that the character would do. So yes, even though Kiryu is an extremely serious and badass dude who is able to shatter stone with one punch, he is also enough of a fucking dumbass to trust livestock with his financial investments. I think that's absolutely incredible. A lot of creators take their properties very seriously, and would be aghast at the very idea of showing Lara Croft doing something as foolish as sitting weirdly in a chair, despite the fact we all know lesbians cannot sit normally if their lives depended on it. But then you've got Yakuza boldly going, yeah, Ichiban did adopt a crayfish because he grew attached to it over a period of 15 seconds, and yes, he was prepared to die for it. What about it? It takes a tremendous amount of confidence to do something like that, and it's something you see the series just do over and over again. It's because of all these stupid personal moments that the emotional scenes hit us so much harder. I arrived late to the Yakuza series, so I played 0 before I played 1, but when I did get to the end of the remake of 1, and major spoilers here by the way, and had to fight Nishiki at the top of the Millennium Tower, all I could think about was the start of Yakuza 0. I kept thinking about that stupid karaoke movie and had it playing in my head over and over again. It was pretty heartbreaking to think about how far away that moment seemed right now. These were men who were like brothers, and they would have died for each other. They did dumb things like go bar hopping, sing together, rip their shirts off in unison. You know, guy stuff. Dudes being guys. And yet, here they were now, beating each other to death. It was a stark reminder by just how far we had come in the series, and by just the second game out of a possible 7 mainline games. Things were so much simpler back then. The tragedy of this moment was just massively amplified by all the dumb and goofy stuff that had come and gone by now. I think that Yakuza has a lot to teach us about how absurdism and comedy can be used even in a more serious narrative. They are an excellent example of how we can benefit from taking our creations less seriously overall and being content to just kind of play around in their worlds, showing a side of the characters we normally would not be privy to. As I'm sitting here making this right now, I'm also realizing this reminds me a lot of fanfiction. Fanfiction's usually looked down on by a lot of people, but there's honestly a lot of very talented writers out there. I think what draws them to fanfiction is largely a desire to see the characters we love in narratives that an official work would never dream of using. I know somebody that writes fanfiction, or at least wrote it, I don't know if they still do anymore, but they were a big fan of Resident Evil, and they had written this story that was about this fish that you can get in Resident Evil. It's a healing item that takes up like 3 suitcases by itself. It's a big boy. And they had written a story which was just Leon cooking the fish with the merchant and then eating it with him. You know, like, you're never gonna see that in a Resident Evil game, right? Like, that's not something that's gonna happen, but it was something that this person thought of, and they wanted to see that come into reality, essentially. The thing that I think is pretty beautiful about fanfiction is that it's something people are motivated to make purely out of love and passion for the characters and series they're in. Fanfiction writers, they don't get any reward for this. They're doing this purely for just wanting to make it, you know? They're not going to get paid for this. There's very minor recognition that you're likely to get for it, but they don't care. It's not about that. It's just that they're passionate about this thing that they're making. And you can always tell when a creator is passionate about the thing that they're doing, because it just comes across in the work, and it's beautiful to see. This sounds a whole lot like Yakuza's side content to me. The only real difference is that the developers were confident enough to just include the fan fiction in the games themselves. Hey, what would happen if Kiryu were challenged to a dance battle, one developer would say, to which their colleague responds, "Shit, that's a good question. That sounds rad as hell, let's put it in there." And why not? If you think that's dumb, you don't have to interact with it, it's side content. But it is there for the people that do care about it. I don't know if any of that makes sense. I just think it's cool to see developers that are able to revel in the worlds that they make. The Yakuza games feel so meticulously created in everything that they do. It just makes it obvious how much that the people involved love their craft. And I just think that's really wonderful to see, you know? Thanks for watching.